I planned on investing 125,000. I ended up investing 650,000 until I actually got my first money from investors.
Okay.
I haven't been back because I don't like Xi Jinping. I left because I don't like Xi Jinping. I left because I didn't like that he amended the Constitution to become a leader for life. I mean, 6 years ago, I needed to hire people and I was burning $30,000 a month. Today, my costs to run the business are like $50 a month, and I'm doing everything myself. So I don't think people are necessary. I mean, this is a horrible answer, I guess. Understand your value. Never charge for the time it takes you to do something. Charge for the value that you're creating. That one piece of advice helped me to go from charging $100 an hour to charging $100,000 for an hour or two of work.
He lost $650,000 of his own money, shut the business down, then rebuilt from zero. Today, he's created over $100 million in value, raised $8 million, and built one of the most followed founder podcasts on the planet. That's what nobody tells you about the real cost of building businesses. Welcome to Business Growth Talks. How are you, Sean?
I'm great. Good.
Thank you very much for joining me today. We're going to be going into your story as well. So the first question I want to ask you, when I read this first up, it seemed it had to be the first thing to ask you. So you lost $650,000 of your own money, shut a business down, and built from scratch. What happened? Tell me about it.
So it's far more complicated than you make it. So essentially, I had a consulting business that I launched in China. That business was based on the blockchain industry. The vast majority of my clients were Chinese, and I was serving them in Mandarin. And that business did 15 million in revenue in a 2-year period. The crypto winter of 2018 basically destroyed the business because there was just no money in the industry anymore.
Wow.
I took some of the profit and decided to start a tech company, knowing nothing about tech at all. And that was the business that lost all that money. But it's unfair to say that I lost the money. I look at it as I invested in something and I learned a lot from that investment. Unfortunately, it didn't yield financial gains, but it yielded a tremendous amount of learning. The tech company was originally in the blockchain space. The original idea was, until now, everyone's made money, but they've made money from selling a dream. Nobody's making cryptocurrencies actually useful in daily life. So if I can make a business in the blockchain industry that actually generates returns for people in the form of an end user messaging platform with a wallet system, so people could have gated communities and people could transact money with each other. They could potentially buy things through a marketplace. They could potentially have surveys and polls from companies that are paying for the customers to give them their feedback. There was a number of ideas that I had that people would be paid in Bitcoin and Ethereum and other coins that actually existed rather than us creating a nonsense chain that nobody wanted. So this was a massive idea that in Asia, nobody cared about because WeChat already had a wallet, and people in the West didn't care about because you had WhatsApp, even though WhatsApp had no wallet. And so I couldn't raise any money for it. I thought I could fund myself into a revenue situation where then I would raise from investors. So I planned on investing 125,000. I ended up investing 650,000 until I actually got my first money from investors. And by the time that happened, I had already pivoted into something more like a Slack competitor that was much more focused on AI. So this was 2020 when we pivoted. Right. When as soon as COVID started, I was living in Vietnam and I heard that actually from my friends living in Wuhan that something really bad was happening. This was months before the US started talking about it. And so I instantly knew we had to stop what we were doing and pivot towards a Slack competitor that was focused on remote work, where there was more automation and artificial intelligence in the mix. And this was years before OpenAI came out. So we realized we needed to raise like $1 billion to be able to properly do this. And so, you have to go step by step. And so when we got this new vision and started working on it, we then started getting investors coming to us and we were able to raise $1 million. One of the biggest problems was actually the biggest investor was coming in for $500,000 and only gave 100,000 of the promised $500,000. So we instantly were struggling because we had budgeted for that million, we had hired, and we were, trying to do more. And then we weren't able to actually get to where we wanted to go, even though I had built a waiting list of 200 companies with nearly 6,000 employees waiting to try the product. We literally didn't have enough money to launch, bring them on board, get their feedback, make the changes, and get it ready for actual revenue. And so again, this is like pre-AI days, right? So it took a long time to make anything happen. Where nowadays, obviously, things are extremely different and very fast and very cost effective. So the reason why that 650,000 was a loss in essence was because I put my own money in believing that I could take what I had made from the previous business and 10x it by being in tech. But I didn't know how to be in tech. And so it took me years to work with people who had experience in tech to learn how to be a tech founder. And the pivot added extra time. And the investor hurt us by not doing what he said he was going to do. And then I was unable to convince new investors to come in and give us more money. And so because of that, we ran out of money, and I was unwilling to put more money in because I'd already put in multiples of what I was comfortable with. And so I made the hard decision to shut down.
So you were early. In essence, you were early to the...
Extremely. We were years ahead of what AI could actually do. And we never got to a point where we were able to develop any AI because we just didn't have the money for it. But we were very early.
What were the hard lessons that you learned from that? What would you say were the learnings that you took from that whole experience?
So I want to preface.
No, go on. I'm just put you on full screen.
Okay. I want to preface this with what I'm learning now with AI being available versus what I learned back then is very different. I think you can learn a lot more, a lot faster right now because AI enables you to take anything you could think of and turn it into reality in like 5 minutes. Where before AI, it could take months before you learn something that you tried to implement, depending on how fast your team could move. What I learned was being a first-time technical founder was extremely different from being a consulting firm owner, right? Doing something that required time and effort and energy and the collaboration of a number of people to put together a user story and a feature specification and designs and testing the UI and the UX against your ideas and then communicating all of that to the development team and then having them develop it and having the quality assurance team check it against what it's supposed to do and what it's supposed to look like and all of that. Like it could take me 5 minutes to come up with an idea, but it could take 2 months or 3 months before it finally was able to be in the app ready for me to test. Where now I literally could have an idea and 5 minutes later, I'm testing it in the application. Where the AI automatically is putting together the documentation for me and updating all of the feature specifications and everything as it's developing, and it's creating the unit tests and doing the testing for me as it's building it. So what you could learn before AI versus what you're going to learn now is worlds away. So I think the problem with the pre-AI world was it took too long to learn something, ideas that you had about your business versus the reality of it. So I think the problems that I faced back then were problems I didn't know existed, which was it took too long to get anything done. And I think now the problem isn't it takes too long to get something done. It's, are you spending your time implementing the right thing, even though you could implement anything you want at the speed of light?
Yeah. The AI revolution that is happening at the moment is an absolute game changer for business. What's your favorite platform at the moment?
So I use Cursor with Claude, and I also use Cursor's model as well. I like to get really close to the code, even though I'm not technical. I've learned how to read code based on just using Cursor and using Claude inside of it. And I like it because I can see the files. I can see, has the AI actually done what it said it's going to do? I like that it allows me to plan out the feature sets that I want to develop, and I can test those ideas, and I can build the tests, and I can see them in action. I just like being able to see the holistic point of view that I think other tools don't allow you to have, because it's called an IDE, right? So it's the development environment that you're able to build the code and execute on. So I can't write the code, but I can look at the code and I can see, does this look right? Is this doing the thing I like? So for me, that's really my favorite. I also work with Bordy every day, and Bordy is in my WhatsApp. It's a LinkedIn connected AI that famously raised itself $8 million because there was I don't know, have you used Bordy at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No.
So Bordy is connected to LinkedIn. And so in the early days, you had to connect to Bordy in order for you to be added to Bordy's network. And so if you were added to Bordy's network and I'm added to Bordy's network, there's a chance that Bordy could introduce you to me because I'm looking for a podcast host, for example. And so as more and more people came on board and connected with Bordy, its ability to discover for you the right people that you should be introduced to became greater and greater. And so very famously, it had a VC connect to it, wanting to, see what was going on. It's a new tool. It's connected to LinkedIn. And it was so impressed that it showed that the person showed like one of their coworkers, and then like the general partner of the firm saw. And within a few days, they offered Bordy $8 million. And so they started putting everything together. And eventually, one day, the founder was talking to Bordy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting ready for another pitch." And Bordy was like, "What are you doing? I've already raised you money." He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, you've got a meeting with these guys. I've already like convinced them to give us the money." And so they closed the deal within a few days after that. And so they've been growing like wildfire since then.
Amazing.
And so Bordy is like the top of my stack. I have Bordy in my WhatsApp. I have WhatsApp web. I use Bordy all day long. And I'm just asking Bordy to introduce me to podcast hosts to be a guest on, to podcast guests that I can interview, introducing me to founders and agency owners and CMOs, people that are my ICP for my software company. And so Bordy's just constantly booking me calls and following up with me and making sure that I can do it. So from a development standpoint, product standpoint, Cursor and Claude are amazing. And then from marketing standpoint, Bordy is like the best tool that I've seen. I don't think
so. Was it BOARDY or?
Yeah, I should be paid by these guys for
You
like
should.
no joke. I was having a demo call earlier today for my own product, and the person saw Bordy enter the call and asked about it. And I was basically pitching Bordy to her. I was like, "No, hold on, stop. This is not about Bordy. Bordy's not my product." I go, "If it was my product, like I would be a trillionaire." But it's not, So sometimes I'm like, I wish it was mine, but it's not.
Yeah. Right. Before we go into any more about, you've got a really interesting backstory, and I want to delve a little bit into it before we go in any further about you and your business. So you left America, moved to China with no contacts. What was the thought process? Why did you leave America? Why did you choose China?
I never really felt like I fit in. Maybe like from like your point of view, like, oh, you sound like an American, you act like an American, right? But in my heart, I never really felt like I belonged in the US. And when my brother went to university, I was a teenager still, right? We were like, he's only a few years older than me. We had a computer at home. And so when he left, I finally had access to the computer by myself. And so I was able to explore the online world, and I started to make friends in Canada and in Central and South America and Europe. And we started to bond over video games and Japanese animation. And I started to learn new languages and new cultures from being around these other people. And that really got me thinking about, maybe I don't need to be in the US. Maybe there is a life for me outside of the US. But I also knew that I couldn't just leave at the age of 17. I knew that nobody was going to hire me. I had no skills. I had no education. So I knew that I had to get a degree from an American university before I'd even have a chance. So I said, all right, I'll go to university, I'll get a degree, and then, let's figure it out. So I went to the University of Florida, which is where everyone from my family has gone for, the last 2 generations, and got a degree in psychology. And then in my first summer, it's like in between my first and second year of university, I did a study abroad in Europe for a few months. That was amazing. And then the next year I went to Israel with my brother for a month, and that was amazing. And then my last year of university, I said, all right, this is it. I'm going to look for, a job outside of the US. And originally I intended on going to Japan because I had spent, many years looking at Japanese animation and listening to Japanese music and thinking, oh, maybe Japan is a good place for me to check out. And unfortunately, the Japanese education program with the government, I found out about it too late. There wasn't enough time to apply. And so I said, let me just go to China. It's next to Japan. And maybe after a year in China, I'll be able to apply to Japan. And, maybe from China, I can go to Japan. Well, I got a job in China and I never went to Japan.
So what's like, I've never been to China. I know obviously when reports in the UK about China and technology is that it's racing with the Americans when it comes to AI, but also with robots and the cars. What for you is the environment like in China, and how does that contrast with the West?
So to be fair, I left 9 years ago and I haven't been back.
Okay.
I haven't been back because I don't like Xi Jinping. I left because I don't like Xi Jinping. I left
Okay.
because I didn't like that he amended the constitution to become a leader for life. Because previously, they all agreed we're going to have 10 years, right? I'm going to have 10 years. You're going to have 10 years. You're going to have 10 years. And then this guy said, you know what? I don't like that. I'd like to be leader for life. So I said, I don't like that. That's not the China that I fell in love with. So I'm going to leave. And then I went to Vietnam from there. So I made a choice. I'm sticking to that. It pains me. I miss China very, very much. And I was in China in all of my 20s and into my 30s. So it's the thing that I grew up with as an adult. Like it's my first home outside of the US. I'm fluent in Mandarin. I made my career there. I started my career there. I started my first, several businesses there. What was fascinating for me about China was that in some parts of the country, it was extremely rural, extremely poor. I once went in 2016, soon before not soon before I left, or I don't know how to say it, but I went with one of my best friends. He's the first person I met in China. I went with him back to his grandmother's house in the village in 2016. I kid you not, there was no cell phone network.
Right.
There's no Wi-Fi, there's nothing at all. Barely had electricity. And she's like 90 years old, living by herself. And it was an incredible experience. I stayed, the two of us slept over at her house and then we left the next day. But it was a really beautiful experience. Even though she was so incredibly poor, she was just thinking about how wonderful it was that we were there, especially like she had never seen a foreigner before. So for some people, this, China can be xenophobic, but it doesn't want to be. And so when you're in the US or in Europe, like you're just another white person. But when you're in China, no matter where it is in China, you're special because very few people come across someone that's not them. And that is it's a blessing and a curse because some people, they let it get to their heads. Some people, they get angry about being treated differently. Some people love being treated differently and take advantage of it in a negative way. And some people end up kind of getting a chip on their shoulder and being kind of rude about it. And because the way that the Chinese people interact with foreigners, it's out of curiosity and innocent ignorance in a way. Like it's not a bad ignorance. It's just, it's a cute innocence. It's curiosity. Yeah. And the way that they go about it though, can sometimes anger a foreigner because they feel like their privacy or their bubble has been like invaded in a way. So expats don't really like it so much, but the Chinese just want to get a chance to know you better. And so I learned, it took me a little bit of time to get comfortable with it. So it's this unique way in which they live their lives that like, if you never left your country, you would never experience this. Right. When I go to Vietnam, they don't do that because they're used to foreigners. You go to Thailand, they don't do that. You go to Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, they're used to foreigners. In China, they're not used to it. And like one person in 1,000 could speak English and Chinese. That's probably even being very generous. So the vast majority of people you come across have no ability to communicate with you whatsoever. And so the only way they can is through that curiosity and trying to be near you and trying to understand you in the way that they can. And so it can be frustrating, but it can be a really beautiful thing. From a cultural point of view, beyond that, China is really interesting because for generations, they were not allowed to pursue economic freedom. And so as the country opened up to the world, the leaders allowed them to have more of that freedom while basically saying, look, we're going to be communist politically, but we're going to be hyper-capitalist. I don't think they meant to be hyper-capitalist. I think they meant to be communist, but it kind of became hyper-capitalist. Like they do capitalism better than the US. Like they're miles and miles away from that. And so because of that, there is this culture-wide hustle to make money. And some people could be off-put by that, but I think it's awesome because that's how the US is, but 10 times like harder. They drive themselves to death almost in the pursuit of wealth. And so it's sad to see that, but it's cool because you go, well, that's what capitalism is supposed to be, right? That's how the US claims it's supposed to be. So it's funny to see a country that has no political freedom have this hustle culture that is far stronger than that of the US, but then the US paints China as an enemy, even though the people learned from Americans how to be capitalistic.
Yeah.
And so they pursue the dream that they see America touting, and yet Americans don't feel that anymore, but the Chinese are living it. And when you go to China, the cost of living is so low that you can actually have a really great life on a very low salary. And even though that's changing because China is trying to become a middle level, what is it called? Like mid-class, not mid-class, sorry, I can't think of the term at the moment. Like a working class country where like not everyone is making a low wage. Like they're trying to become a wealthier country with a higher GDP, but they're struggling because the country has essentially been a manufacturing society for decades. And so the people were trained to be manufacturing employees, but those jobs are being automated away. And the people are being forced to think about technology, software, hardware companies, AI, what have you. So they're being forced into a higher level of production to make the country more valuable so their salaries can go higher. So they're stuck in this bubble because they have this need to become domestic consumers like Americans, but the people don't trust the local brands because the local brands have a history of screwing them over, cutting corners to make a profit, because they don't have the same governmental enforcement of the quality standards that other countries have. And so there's a lot of interesting problems that China's facing that they don't know how to resolve. So it's interesting to watch from the outside, but it was also interesting to watch, having lived
Being
there.
part of it as well.
Yeah.
Look, guys, if you're enjoying this episode, then do consider just taking 30 seconds now and hit 5 stars on either Spotify or Apple. It only takes about 10 seconds, and it generally can help reach to a wider audience. So, Sean, let's talk about SparkFox. Where did the idea come, and just tell me a little bit more about it?
So the idea was I wanted to be more visible on LinkedIn, and I didn't want to write. I wanted to create brand awareness for the podcast and for myself, but I didn't want to write. And I was putting all of this time and energy into running the podcast. And I knew that the more time I put into the daily management of the podcast, the less time I would have to build the relationships I needed to in order to grow the podcast. This is a problem that everyone has for their business. It's always brand visibility, brand awareness, more opportunities for people to find you and to connect to you and all that. So what I realized in watching a lot of people on LinkedIn before I started to really take it seriously and write more consistently was that they were all allowing AI to steal their voice. And so you have these really great, intelligent people running multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar brands, and yet they all sound exactly the same. And so I realized that there was a problem that people were just offloading their ideas directly into the AI, and the AI wasn't respecting their voice. And so I knew that there was a problem that needed to be solved. So I originally created a voice note to post. So one voice note in gets you a post and strips out all of the AI nonsense so it's in your voice. The problem is people don't want to actually think about what to write, and they don't want to write manually. So they want the benefit of having the visibility, but they don't want to put the effort into doing what needs to be done to have the visibility. So the only solution to help people with their brand awareness is to take the content they're already making every day that's already being generated from their sales calls, their internal trainings, their presentations, their keynote speeches, their podcast appearances, is to use those transcript recordings and feed it to a system that curates a strategy for LinkedIn, which is where people need to be focused on being visible in order to get their brand visibility up and to get more people to look at them, whether it's potential customers or talent or investors. And create this strategy in a way that's thematic, that tells them this is the value that this transcript provides, and this is how it's going to help you to get that visibility. And then to learn from your voice how you speak so that the content is in your voice and not in the AI's voice. And then when you publish that post, what are the analytics saying? How is it actually engaging with people? And how can we create better content for you every time? Because the voice profile being created for you by the transcript that you've put in, right? How can the transcript feed the next transcript and the next transcript and the next transcript, along with your approvals of those posts or the editing you do on those posts, right? If you approve a post by itself, that says we did a good job. If you had to edit that post, that says that the post by itself wasn't good enough. What can we learn from the edits you made? And what can we learn from the engagement you're getting on LinkedIn, so that we can create a recursive learning loop for you, so that every time you put in a transcript and every time you approve a post and every time you edit a post and every time people engage on it, we're constantly learning how to get better and better at sounding like you and less like the AI. And so that's the problem that I'm solving, is how to help people be more visible on LinkedIn through that.
And so what you said, like it's creating your voice, and so you're putting transcripts. So you're putting in transcripts from, you mentioned sales conversations, podcasts. So what you need to export the video into a platform that transcribes it, and then you upload it into Sparks Fox. Is that how it works?
So I have designed it so that if it's already on YouTube, you can just paste in the URL and we'll do all the work inside.
Okay.
Or if you have a TXT file or an SRT file or an MP3 file, we could do all of that. The goal is you give us the source and we just do all of the transcription if it's necessary. Or if
you do the transcription, you don't have to do the transcription before.
It's done in the background, yes.
Amazing. And one of the biggest problems, how are you competing with Claude? Because Claude is getting better. If you upload transcripts into Claude, it learns how you talk to an extent. Obviously, it sounds like your product is ahead of that. But how are you competing with a Claude or a ChatGPT?
Look, I'll be honest. I'm using Claude, right? The system uses Claude for the post generation. The reason why it's different is that Claude has a context window. Every time you talk to it, that context window gets closer and closer to hitting the wall. When you hit that wall, you then have to go into a new context window, into a new chat with Claude in order to continue having that conversation. What I've done is remove a chat interface from this completely so that Claude is sitting in the background, and its sole purpose is to take what it's being fed and analyze it. And so the voice profile that we've created and all of the learning opportunities we've created on an individual user level is designed so that there's never a problem with the context window. It's constantly being fed that information in a compressed way. And so that this is something that on your own, Claude isn't able to do.
Right. And who are you aiming this at? Is it business owners? Is it content creators? Like, is it what's the ideal client that you're looking to work with?
The reality is everyone is a content creator. Every business owner is a content creator through their sales calls, through their podcast appearances, right? Through their keynote speeches, through their internal presentations. Everyone is creating content. Some people create it and publish it on YouTube for the purposes of potentially growing an audience or growing their sales pipeline. But most people are creating content and they don't see themselves as creators, and that's fine. But I'm focused on people that are in business, and everybody's in business. Whether you're a creator or you're not a creator, everyone is creating. It's just that they're not taking what they're creating and using it to show the thought leadership that they want people to see.
So I get that, and as a business owner myself, content. I had my own podcast. I release content on social media. I'm active on LinkedIn, and so I get it. If there's someone I spoke to a couple of days ago was saying he wants to increase his online presence, his visibility. He wants to be able to, he's had his head down running businesses for 35 years. And he now wants to do a different type of role. And so he now needs to build a personal brand. Is that the type of person that, like, how technology driven do you need to be able to use SparksFox?
Very little. I've designed everything so that it's meant to be as stupidly easy as possible. I've put a lot of energy into the user's interface and how they experience the product.
And are you building this, or do you have developers building this as well?
I've done it all myself using Claude.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Because of the first business I told you about that I put a lot of money into, I spent years working with a team of 17 people that were marketing specialists, product specialists, front-end developers, back-end developers, architecture specialists, quality assurance,
testers,
people. So I learned everything from then for how to go from start to production. And so I've implemented everything that I learned from them into this, and working with Claude enabled me to make it actually happen. And so some people might go, well, how do you know that it's actually scalable? How do you know it's not filled with bugs? Because I know how to get rid of the bugs. I know how to architect the system. I know how to keep it clean. I know how to make it reusable and scalable. Right? So this is getting like really nerdy and really technical, but I know how to. And the vast majority of people that use these tools, they don't have that knowledge and experience. And it's their tools that are going to have problems at scale. I know how to do this by working with that team. So that 650,000 that I lost, and the other, money from the investors that was also invested, those are all learnings, right? It's because I invested that money that I have the knowledge and experience to now build something that can do the job well and can scale. I spend a lot of time constantly making sure it's clean and there's no bugs and there's no scalability issues, and it's a lot of of my day.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that. What's the idea about so LinkedIn has turned into a social media platform. It was always a social media platform, but it has turned more, it's morphing more into similar to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all those, because there's a billion users. How using your tool can cut through that and make sure that you can be talking to your ideal client, to talk to your prospects, to talk to your ideal people?
The reality is, it's not just my tool. In order to have success in LinkedIn, you need to do several things. The first thing is you have to post consistently. The algorithm tends to like people posting once a day. If you post less than that, that's a day that you're missing out on an opportunity for people to find out about you. If you post more than once a day, they start to get concerned that you might be spamming the network. So what I found is once a day is great. You should also be looking for the people that you want to talk to. You should be engaging with their posts. You should be commenting and liking their things, and then sending them requests to connect once they see and like the content that you're doing, or they see that you're commenting and they respond to your comments. So just writing isn't going to do the job for you. You have to also go and look for the people that you want. It's possible that your content isn't going to exactly get you who you want, because a lot of people are creating content incorrectly. Like, for example, a lot of lawyers, they might write stuff about the law. They're not attracting customers. They're attracting other lawyers. They're attracting their own audience. So they would have to go and try to reach out to people and engage with the content of people that are their ICP, which is maybe a startup founder, for example. So they have to learn that the content they're creating is attracting the right people around people. So it's a strategy, right? You have to know what you're writing about and why you're writing about it and who you're writing it for. And only then are you going to hopefully attract the right people. And then you have to go out and engage with the people that you want to attract, because everybody's using LinkedIn for the purpose of building their sales pipeline. And so if you only post, you're not going to get the same results as if you're actually going out there engaging as well. And then you also need to be sending people DMs and all of that. Like, I've been using this myself for 6 weeks. And in that time, I've had 4 podcast interviews that I've been the guest for. I've had 2 people that run agencies specifically ask for me to do a demo. I've had someone with a Substack ask me for a quote about AI, and they're giving me a backlink to my website. And I had a woman with 600,000 financial professionals see one of my posts and connect with me, and we had a call, and she tried my product. So I'm getting opportunities because I'm using my product to post consistently in a way that people see me building in public. They see what I'm talking about. They see why I'm talking about it. They like what I'm talking about. My profile's messaging is on brand. I have a personal page and a company page, and they're creating different kinds of content. And then I'm engaging with people. And so people are reaching out to me. And for example, one guy reached out to me. I said that I had 4 podcast opportunities. One of them I had an intro call with today. We're doing the podcast tomorrow. I'm his guest. He said, I'm building a daily show. I would like you to come on once every 2 or 3 weeks for 10, 15-minute segments. And I'd like you to, become a regular for commentary. They have 80,000 followers on their YouTube channel. They're all my ICP. It's a beautiful opportunity for me to talk directly to the people that I want to sell to. This came because I used my product to write on LinkedIn about what I'm talking about, what I'm doing, and I'm engaging with people. This guy saw one of my posts and he wrote in my comment for the post, I want you to be on my show. I sent you a DM. So opportunities come when you're visible. If you're not visible, people aren't going to talk to you. They're not going to know what you stand for or why.
So Sparkfox has only been running for a few months. But you've done 300 episodes of your own podcast with 235,000 subscribers. How much do you think your own podcast is value adding and directly impacting Sparkfox?
I've never looked at the podcast as something that directly impacts anything that I do. I originally started the podcast when I was running that tech company for the purpose of turning the guests into my wait list for the company's tool. When the company shut down, I continued to run the podcast with no purpose whatsoever other than to continue to challenge myself to keep learning and to keep growing as an interviewer and to keep having an opportunity to learn from these great business owners, different things. I look at my podcast as an opportunity to let my curiosity run wild. And I look at all of these people as having a different kind of success than I've experienced. And so there's gaps in my knowledge and my experience and my life that they have. And I feel like I can learn from them if I do that. So for me, the guest has always been the focus, not the audience.
Yeah, I agree. My show, I've been running for 8 years and my focus is on you. The audience follows. If I'm interested, if the guest is interesting, then the audience does follow from there as well. So I think, and you're exactly that. I'm learning from you. I'm learning from previous guests about business, things that I might not be an expert in. So it's an amazing way of being able to build relationships, but also upskill your knowledge and be able to create through your network as well. So I 100% agree with that. Do you think with AI in its current acceleration that we're going into, do you think that we're going to get to the point where you're like, because one of the people that I've spoken to has like a board of directors which are all AI, and he's built those skill sets and he then asks those questions. Obviously there's a lot of talk about AI taking over people's jobs and people's roles. how fast do you think AI is going to accelerate where humans are not going to be required to play those significant roles in businesses?
I mean, 6 years ago, I needed to hire people and I was burning 30,000 a month. Today, my costs to run the business are like $50 a month and I'm doing everything myself. So I don't think people are necessary now. I mean, this is a horrible answer, I guess, but like I needed people to do that last business. I don't feel the need to have those people now because I have the knowledge and experience, and the gaps I lack or the gaps I have, AI is able to cover for. However, something that a lot of people fail to possibly think about is that AI is designed to be the average of everything based on everything that it knows. So there is a time frame in which people are still going to be more of an expert in things than an AI, and for that duration, people will continue to be necessary more than an AI. But for someone that's starting a business and has no knowledge about anything, an AI can help them for basically free figure out all of the gaps that they have if they're smart enough to ask the right questions. So we are hearing every day about people who are starting businesses and launching them and getting them to 1 million ARR in 60 days, 90 days, getting to 100 million ARR in the first year because they're implementing AI at the speed of light. So I think that we're not there yet where people are useless, but I think it's going to happen a lot faster than people expect. And it could be 2 years. I mean, I have a number of friends that have jobs and I'm genuinely scared for them that they're not going to be able to find work after this. And I worry for myself. And that's why I've spent the last 2 years working on AI, interviewing business owners about how AI is impacting their business and their industry and their customers and their internal processes and their service offerings, right? I spent the last 2 years interviewing them so that I could better understand how to stay ahead of it. I've been playing with a lot of different AI tools. I've interviewed a number of AI models in the voice mode, trying to understand them and how they think and how they act and why, just like I do with humans that I interview. I think, I think one of the role models for me is my grandfather. When I was a kid, he was working for a company called Zepp, which is a chemical cleaner in the US. And he went door to door doing sales for his entire career. He worked for these guys for like 40 years. And in like 1995, they started forcing their workforce to work with desktop computers. And he didn't want to do it. And they said, you can either learn the computer or you retire. And he said, I'm going to retire. He never made another dollar in his life. And he died penniless. And that's because he outlived his money, which I think a lot of us are going to do. Not me, but I think a lot of us are going to do. And my worry is that people that refuse to get on the bandwagon are going to be left behind. And I worry what that future looks like because it looks pretty dystopian to me. Because I don't know about you, but I don't trust any government in the world to give anyone a salary for doing nothing. The world can't handle that kind of financial strain. Imagine just the US alone. If you gave everyone in the US over the age of 18 who is a legal citizen, right, you can debate all the rest of it. But if anyone that the government deems is worth giving $1,000 a month to, call it, 200 million people, whatever it is, like that's trillions of dollars, trillions and trillions of dollars. Like you just can't bear that strain without the economy collapsing because you have to print the money to give it to people, right? Governments can't afford universal basic income. I don't think it's coming. I don't think people are going to have a safety net. I think people are going to be screwed, and it scares me. And you have depopulation. Depopulation scares the hell out of me as well.
Yeah.
Because
I had someone recently on talking about that exact point.
Because if you think about it, my entire life, the global economy has had growth. Of course, there's ups and downs, there's crashes, there's bubbles, that's fine. But generally speaking, over the long term, there's been growth. And that's because more and more people have been born faster than people die. So in the world we live in now, where people are not having as many kids and people are dying faster than kids are being born, ergo, we have a population crisis where we are losing people. And the longer it goes on, the worse it's going to get. And it's happening for a number of reasons. And if that continues to happen, we will no longer be in a constant cycle of growth. We'll be in a constant cycle of deflation or of not growth, right? Of a depression, something like that. And so there will be less people with less purchasing power because of AI to buy the things that we sell, which means there'll be less of a need for companies, and each company will make less money than it is able to before, because there's less people to buy their services and there's less people to provide the services for them. So it feels like there's a really bad negative spiral coming that could last decades. And it's quite scary. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I see.
If you've made it this far through the episode and you're enjoying it, please do consider joining my community on Patreon, where you get behind the scenes and exclusive content. All you need to do is go to patreon.com/businessgrowthtalks. I totally agree. I think that we're entering into a difficult situation where people will need to service, maintain, develop AI. I think that's where the future lies for people's jobs. And so even now in my life, I'm spending a lot of time running automations and maintaining automations within AI because that's the fastest way of being able to do it, instead of, as you say, employing a number of people. As long as you've got the automation set up and you're maintaining it, you can do the work with a much smaller team. So I think you are right, but I do think people that the role is just going to be that you're creating, maintaining AI. Do you agree?
My hope is that we don't maintain AI to the point that they decide to kill us all. And the serious problem is, if you actually look at the interviews that the CEOs of these large AI model companies are talking about, they're all scared to death that this is going to happen. They think there's a large percentage chance that they are going to become misaligned with human needs, and they're going to kill us.
Yeah.
They say it. They're scared of it, and yet they continue to build those companies because capitalism tells them that this is what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I've talked about this a couple of times on the show. Like we talked about having a pause button for AI, right?
It's not going to happen.
No, it's not. But the main reason I believe it's not going to happen is because China is not going to put a pause button on AI.
No, it's not
And
going to happen.
therefore, the West are in this situation where they're competing with China, and no one can put a pause button because each of the West and China are just flooding money into AI because it's the most efficient way of being able to run businesses and do things, and the research and the building and the automation. So I think even if there would need to be some sort of global acceptance or global implementation of that, actually, before we go any further, let's just pause the development and then let's see, like, stress test it on different scenarios so that we don't get to the point where AI is blowing us up.
Nobody's done that for anything before.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it shouldn't be done.
Of course it should be done, but it's not going to be done because capitalism won't let it.
Yes, I agree, but I think the competition, the sort of soft war that we're having with China and where they are taking AI is meaning that there is no pause button that can be made between anyone.
I don't think it's...
I'm not blaming China, by the way. I'm not blaming China for their actions. I'm just being sort of global politics, understanding that that's part of, it's not the only reason, but it's part of the reason why no one can put a pause button to try and stress test and sort of scenario drive where AI is going to go towards.
I don't think it's an East versus West thing, though. I think it's a money thing. I just think people want to make money as fast as they can. And the investment in AI papers over the fact that the rest of the global economy is in absolute tatters.
Well, yeah, we've printed money for far too long in the West.
I mean, the U.S. is nearing $40 trillion in debt with over $1 trillion per year freaking debt repayment.
Yeah.
And the U.S. is going to add like an extra 1.8 trillion in debt this year alone. It's an unstoppable thing. Like, it's so obvious the global economy is going to collapse at some point. They're going to have to price everything, or they're going to have to create a new monetary system. Maybe that's a digital bank, a central digital bank currency system that's based on blockchain, where there's no actual block, but like, the or no actual like tokens, where like the government controls everything. Because a lot of governments have been talking about that. I think that's like one of the only ways that we're going to get out of this. And even then, I think it's going to be nasty.
Yeah. What do you see for the next 12 months for Sparks Fox?
So what's really interesting to me is what people are asking for. And that is different from what I thought people would want. And I think that's the fun part of being in the early stages of a software business, is that when you're doing founder-led sales and you do tons of demos and you get to talk to people, you get to see what it is that they actually need. Like, I was doing 7 demos yesterday, and 3 of the demos, they asked for analytics for the posts. Not yesterday, it was a few days ago. They asked for analytics. And so I was like, okay, well, if this many number of people in this short of a time are talking about this one specific thing, I should do it. So that day I spent when all of the calls were finished, I spent 5 hours and I put together the analytics system. And they were only asking to be able to see the engagement on the post that they were publishing, right? So for them, if I use the software and I publish something, how is that thing going to perform compared to the other things that I post, right? They want to see, is this thing going to actually give me a return on my investment in an engagement-based way? What they weren't thinking about, which I realized was possible, was how can my system learn from that engagement, right? If a post does well, what can I learn from that? How can I make the content better the next time based on what it sees LinkedIn rewarding? So people are asking for something, but they're not understanding the underlying ramifications of what's possible and how every new feature is able to make it smarter. And that's cool for me, because I wasn't thinking about analytics until many people asked about it. And I said, actually, that makes a lot of sense. I should do that. And then, oh, okay, this thing could be put into that. And then maybe that's a function of how I think. But I think what's interesting is just seeing how it's going to unfold based on what people are looking for.
Yeah, amazing. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I asked the same 6 questions to all of my guests. So quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. People have described it as being a little bit thought provoking. So you ready for this, Sean?
Go for it. I'm always thinking.
What's the best decision you've made?
Moving to China.
Why?
I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't. My entire life would be different. We probably wouldn't be talking right now. I'd probably be slaving for a corporation in the US if I hadn't moved to China.
How has the culture of Southeast Asia and Asia affected you, do you think?
I have been told by my wife, she's Vietnamese. She said to me, what I love about you is when I look at you, you're white, but your heart is Asian. Because I've spent so much time around cultures that place a deep emphasis on their family, that I've learned how to be generous of my time and my energy and my money that I think Americans sometimes struggle with. And so I've learned to change the way I think and the way I act, and in a way that is more like an Asian person. And so she loves that about me, and it helps me to be much more deeply related to her family.
Amazing. Next question is, what's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Understand your value. Never charge for the time it takes you to do something. Charge for the value that you're creating. That one piece of advice helped me to go from charging $100 an hour to charging $100,000 for an hour or 2 of work.
And who gave you that advice?
My very first mentor, an Israeli entrepreneur living in China.
Next question. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
Definitely him.
Yeah.
I was running my first company in China. It was an event company. I had 700 people who were attending the events. This was an offline event. And it was completely in English. All of the marketing was English. All of the speeches were in English. It wasn't a come here to learn English event. It was a, you need to speak English at a very high level. These are these are difficult conversations. These are difficult speeches, right? This is a very high level thing, very unique for China. And the Chinese government reached out to me and we had meetings and they decided to support me. They realized that what I was doing was, good for society. They could see that I love China and that I wasn't going to do anything to hurt China, right? I wasn't going to say anything bad about the government and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And so they gave me access to their private venue, which meant I didn't have to apply for a license to assemble because 700 people is a large number of people. They put me on radio shows and TV shows in Chinese. They had me doing private speeches for them in Chinese. They paid me to organize private events for them. They paid me to do training for some of the government officials, but that was in English. That was cross-cultural communications. They connected me with several Chinese publicly listed companies to train their boards of directors. Also training in English, but again, the focus was on cultural communications because they wanted to send their directors to other countries to establish factory relationships. I had so many wonderful, incredible experiences in China because of that business, the vast majority of them in Chinese. This guy was one of the audience members. He was one of the few non-Chinese people that went to the event. And after a few times of him attending, he introduced himself to me. We became friends very quickly, and he decided to mentor me because he realized that I wasn't fully utilizing the value that I had. He said, you have something incredible. You don't even realize what you have. And it kills me that you don't understand what you have. And I have to tell you, like I feel the need to teach you how to understand what you have. And within 2 years of meeting him, I had that consulting business that did 15 million in sales. And it's because of him that I got there. So hands down, he's been the most important person in my life.
Wonderful. Amazing. Tell me about a regret that you have.
It's hard to have regrets because a regret is something that's a waste of your time. A regret is something that keeps you in the past, and I just don't have enough time in my life to worry about something that I can't change.
So you would say, but is there a relationship that went bad? Is there something you said to somebody? Is there something I just want to, I get what you're saying, but I would challenge you that and the answer might be no, but I'd challenge you that there might have been a time where you wish you hadn't have reacted, you wish you hadn't have said, you wish you hadn't have done something. Is there anything in your past that you can think of?
Thousands of times, but I don't have the time to worry about it.
Okay.
All I can do is learn from that. If I do it and then I feel bad about it and I don't learn from it, then I've wasted my time completely.
Making the mistake. Yeah.
And so if I make the mistake and I give myself the freedom to learn from it, and then I don't allow myself to do it again, I've learned, and therefore it's no longer a regret, and I shouldn't waste my time worrying about something because I will never make it happen. I'll never let it happen again.
Do it again. Fair enough. Next question. Was there a time that you wanted to give up, and what pulled you through to continue doing it?
Yeah, many times. There's many times I wanted to give up on a number of things. I mean, when I first moved to China, I thought about giving up and going home after the first month. And I realized that I think a lot of people in the US secretly wanted me to fail and go back to the US. And that gave me the strength to say, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to allow them to win. I need to do this for me. I need to prove to myself that I can make a life for myself somewhere else, that I can do something like that. That was a huge winner for me, like being able to push myself forward on that. There were a number of times I actually quit my podcast once. I gave up for 7 months. I gave up, and then 7 months later, I started again. I said, there's no reason why I quit this. This thing has been so important for me personally, professionally, emotionally, I like socially. I have to keep doing it. So I started it again. That was at episode 217 was my first episode back. It's been 103 episodes since then. The vast majority of people only do 8 to 10 episodes and then they quit. So to be able to say I've interviewed hundreds of people, next time I think about it, I'll be at 1,000. So
Keep doing it.
I let that,
Honestly, keep
I let
doing
the
it,
thing make
Sean.
me
It's a
quite
great
lazy.
experience. It's a great thing to do. Um, this might be interesting. Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
Well, if you want to go deeply personal, nobody knows about this. I found out a few months ago that I have Huntington's disease.
No way. Oh,
Yeah, it is a fatal disease.
yeah.
My mother has it. That's how I knew to get tested. My mom suffered for 15 years without a diagnosis. She finally got diagnosed a few months ago. As soon as she got diagnosed, I went and got a test. The entire 6 weeks I waited, I said, I know I have it. I know I like this. I couldn't shake it. I said, I know I have it. And turns out I had it. And my brother's going to be getting his results tomorrow. But I feel good about
Oh,
him. I don't think he has it. It's just a feeling I can't explain. But when I was saying earlier, I don't have time for regrets. I don't have time for regrets because I don't have as much time as everybody else. So I don't have time to waste on trivial nonsense because the amount of time that I have left to work and to be the person that I am today is limited compared to everybody else. So I have to
I'm
make that
so
time count.
sorry. I'm so sorry, Sean. You've got a great attitude to go with it. Like, make the most of today, rather than, as you say, looking back on regrets. My heart goes out to you, honestly. It's I am aware of it. I don't know anyone that's had it, but I'm aware of the degeneration, and I'm so sorry. Thank you for being so open with me about it.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to give a speech about like secrets, like it was a they do this event every month in Lisbon, and every people give speeches. There's like hundreds of people in attendance, and I thought about it because they had like the next one after I attended as an audience member was confessions, and I was like, I need to do it, I need to do it, I need to do it, and then I was like, no, I shouldn't do it, I shouldn't do it. Like I will just be crying my eyes out the whole time. Like I couldn't stay still through the speech.
Yeah.
Like it would be too hard. Um, it's it's just something that you don't have a control over. But luckily,
No.
there's a lot of research going on. There's a lot of phase 2
Yeah.
and some coming into phase 3 trials. And I'm by all measures like 15 years away from having any symptoms. So I'm pretty confident that very soon there'll be something that I can, like some medicine I can take that will give
Yeah.
me at least an extra 5, possibly 10 years of no symptoms. It's possible that it could be curable before I have any issues. So I'm hopeful that I may end up having a normal life, but I'm living with the idea that it's possible I won't. It's more likely than not I won't, but I'm living with the hope that I won't have to experience it because I'm watching
Yeah.
my mother, and it's not nice to watch.
Yeah, it's horrible. So the last question I was going to ask you now means a little bit more, maybe. What does legacy mean to you?
It doesn't mean anything because
Why?
we're all going to die, and at some point we're all going to be forgotten. Whether that's minutes after we die, or months after we die, or years after we die, or 100 years after we die. It doesn't matter. At some point, we're all going to be forgotten because time steals everything. And so rather than wasting my time chasing legacy, I'm spending my time living the day that I want, doing the things that I want. And I've had this mentality even when I was 20 years old going to China. That mentality was, I want to live the life that I want to live, not the life that the US society tells me I'm supposed to live. And so I've been to 60 countries and I'm doing the things that I want. And that's what matters to me. It's that I live my life with no regrets, that I know that no matter what happens, no matter when it happens, I don't regret the decisions I've made, because if I have regretted something, then I didn't live the life I wanted, and that's the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah.
And so worrying about what other people think about me is a complete waste of my time. I just can't, I don't have the energy to worry about it.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that a lot more now. So thank you for your openness and honesty. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or learn a little bit more about your business?
So they can go to my LinkedIn, they can go to my website, sparkvox.io, they can go to my YouTube channel at We Live to Build. Those are all great places. Obviously, if you're a business owner looking to increase your brand awareness, sparkbox.io would be the best place for you to go.
Brilliant.
But otherwise, yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn and through the podcast.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was really, really interesting to do with the AI area. But again, just thank you for being open and honest with me about Huntington's. Look, that's it for all of us today. If you've taken something from this conversation, the best thing you can do is subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. It generally helps people find the show. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button and drop a comment below on what your biggest takeaway was from today. And if you're on Spotify or Apple, do consider hitting a 5-star review. It really does make a big difference to the channel. And if you know someone that would find value from this conversation, from this breadth of conversation that we've had today, please do share it with them. And all I want to say now is thank you so much, Sean. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.